Scientists who pushed COVID hysteria confessed totalitarian agenda to control populations with fear. It's in the news. That's not on MSM. Scientists who were instrumental in spreading COVID hysteria around the globe nearly as fast as the SARS virus itself have now come forward to express regret over furthering a totalitarian agenda. The members of the Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Behavior, a group of British scientists, confessed that the public health authorities are pursuing an agenda to control populations with fear. Scientists on a committee that encouraged the use of fear to control people's behavior during the COVID pandemic have admitted its work was unethical and totalitarian, the Telegraph reported. Members of the Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Behavior, SPI-B, expressed regret about the tactics in a new book about the role of psychology in the government's 19 response, the report noted. SPI-B warned in March last year that ministers needed to increase the perceived level of personal threat from 19 because a substantial number of people still do not feel sufficiently personally threatened. Gavin Morgan, a psychologist on the SPI-B team, revealed the political agenda. Clearly, using fear as a means of control is not ethical. Using fear smacks of totalitarianism. It's not an ethical stance for any modern government. By nature, I am an optimistic person, but all this has given me a more pessimistic view of people, Morgan said. Another scientist said the pandemic response has been dystopian. In March 2020, the government was very worried about compliance and they thought people wouldn't want to be locked down, another scientist said. There were discussions about fear being needed to encourage compliance, and decisions were made about how to ramp up the fear. The way we have used fear is dystopian. The use of fear has definitely been ethically questionable, the scientists continued. It's been like a weird experiment. Ultimately, it backfired because people became too scared. Another SPI-B member added, you could call psychology mind control. That's what we do. Clearly, we try and go about it in a positive way, but it has been used ferociously in the past. One scientist warned that people use the pandemic to grab power and drive through things that wouldn't happen otherwise. We have to be very careful about the authoritarianism that is creeping in. Psychology is your main weapon. Psychology has had a really good epidemic. Another scientist said. The pandemic response very much resembles the climate change agenda if applied for biomedical purposes. It is much more devastating to populations psychologically. However, as health is a much more personal issue and the resulting fear is much more appreciable. Yeah, that's right. In 2020, the annual state of mental health in America showed that anxiety and depression nationwide hit an all-time high and was hitting young people the hardest. Nations around the world are conducting psychological warfare against their own populations to further their totalitarian agenda. It is beginning to have devastating effects. There you have it. Everybody's been trying to tell you. There's nothing to be scared about. It's a bad cold. But it's your choice to believe what you want. Choose what you want to look at, listen to. For now. Because if you keep letting them do this, you won't have a choice. Wake up.